91.9 WSHR, this is the Sachem News Hour, and I'm Chris Vaccaro. Our in-studio guest, Matt Barbis, from the class of 1989. No coincidence they're playing a little 80s tunes at Matt's request. But we're not here to talk music. We are here to talk about the Rose Brucia Educational Foundation, which Matt is the founder and chairman of. Thanks for coming down, Matt.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about your experiences at Sachem and the great things you're doing with Rose Brucia. Matt and I are close friends. We talk all the time. I've done a lot of work with the foundation and covering it over the past couple of years. And I'm impressed with the quick growth of the foundation. I'm not a good guy to follow charities and know how quickly something like that's supposed to grow. But it seems like you made a lot of success and a lot of gains within a short amount of time.
Yes, I can really attribute that to a wonderful staff and all the volunteers that help us, which happen to be Sachem alums as well, and teachers.
And Rose Brucia, the foundation focuses on stranger safety awareness. It is, if not the leading foundation for stranger safety awareness, one of the top in the country. And from the free curriculums to the lessons that you've given yourself to, again, the awareness of stranger safety, it's definitely an interesting and specific niche to have a foundation surrounded by. You want to give a quick background of how it started and your personal connection to it?
Sure. Back in 2004, my cousin Carly Brucia was taking a shortcut home from her friend's house, and she passed behind a car wash, and unfortunately her abduction was caught on tape. It was the first abduction ever caught on tape, and the car wash surveillance video picked up the whole thing. And out of that came the Rose Brucia Educational Foundation, because I never felt so helpless and angry and upset and moved to do anything in my life as much as that moment where I had to watch my family go through possibly the most difficult thing that anyone could go through. And what came out of it was an age-specific child's program to teach children what to do before a stranger approaches them, to give them ideas and concepts that they can have at the forefront or in the back of their mind, and it would bring itself to the forefront if such a situation would present itself.
Was this something that struck you right away, like this is what I need to do to get involved and to help show other people and prevent incidents like that happening again, or was it a year later? I mean, how quick did you say, listen, let's start this?
It happened right away. I have a background in teaching martial arts to little kids, so what happened was I just wanted to go into my local school, which happened to be Tamarack. That was my elementary school. And I wanted to speak to the kids for about 15 minutes and just tell them basic self-awareness techniques that they could keep in the back of their head should something arise. And what came out of that was the fact that I had the idea, and it literally was a couple of days later that I called up my old marketing professor from Sachem, Ed Paquette, and I had said, listen, I have this idea, and how do you think I should go about it? And he said, well, first thing you need to do is sit with the board and ask them permission to go in. And I spoke with the principal of Tamarack at the time, and they both had expressed the same concern that, I'm just a guy, and I needed an organization. So I quickly developed the concept of the Rose Brucia Educational Foundation out of that discussion. And likewise, I right away asked Ed Paquette to sit on the educational committee. The educational committee is head up by Patrick Chiricella, who is a retired Sachem teacher from Seneca, and he handles everything curriculum-wise. And from there, we went into Tamarack and presented them with our juvenile puppet show that explained some concepts, and then I did a 5-minute self-awareness discussion with the children in between. And our concern was to make it educationally sound, and it was really out of Tamarack that it evolved into the program that it is today, because they were very honest with us that it was a cute program, but it lacked educational substance. And Pat and I went back to the drawing board. We tore the whole thing down and rewrote single concept shorts that would be the basis for the lesson plans that we were writing with the educational committee. So it really took on a life of its own educationally from the beginning. And then the strides that you're talking about came, and I would have to say another Sachem alum, which is Lorianne LaRocco, had contacted me and said, "What are you doing over there? I'm very interested in this." And she lives in New Jersey now, and she said, "I'd really like to make this not only a local program, but I think you should go national." And within a couple of days of Lorianne getting involved, we were introduced right away to Representative Paul Ryan from Wisconsin, who ran for vice president most recently, and Steve Israel from our local area. And between the two of them, they wrote a bill, and it was the Rose Brucia bill that declared a national day where we would launch our national lesson plans and DVD curriculum. And again, Lorianne was a fire that just started burning, and she just projected us to the next level.
Absolutely, and there's definitely a bunch of things you've touched on in there that I want to talk about, and Lorianne's connections are one of them. Before we get into a lot of the growth and things that have happened in the last couple of years, and I'm talking, ringing the bell at NASDAQ and meeting Donald Trump and having a meeting with Mr. Forbes. I mean, you've done some unbelievable things as a result of this foundation, which is the most unbelievable part because you're helping parents and children. So it's just been a whirlwind for you, and I want to touch on all of those things. But let's talk about some of the key steps of stranger safety. There's a curriculum, there's education that goes around stranger safety. Somebody comes up to you and says, "Oh, what's your foundation about?" What's the basics of the bullet points that you want to tell them?
I basically say we bring awareness to children and empower them to make the right decision should a stranger approach them. And we have a laser point focus on teaching children about strangers. There's all types of abductions in the United States. In fact, the numbers are staggering. It's 800,000 children go missing each year, and it boils down to all different types of abductions, from a family member taking a child to a family friend taking a child, and some level of acquaintance there, and then you boil down to a stranger taking a child. And of the 800,000, 21,700 roughly are children abducted by the true definition of a stranger, someone they haven't met. And even though that number seems small and insignificant compared to 800,000, sitting here in the Sachem community, I can say this to anyone listening: imagine every child in Sachem schools, that's every single elementary school, every middle school, and each of the high schools.
Roughly 15,000.
Gone. No one for a 25-mile radius. Now take into consideration Bayport and Patchogue Medford. That's the population of children that go missing every year. So you're talking about driving in a 25 to 30-mile radius on Long Island and not seeing one child. That's how many children go missing.
Scary.
And that's what we want to reduce. We want to reduce it, if not eradicate it.
Talking to Matt Barbis, founder and chairman of the Rose Brucia Educational Foundation, on the Sachem News Hour here on 91.9. We'll take a few more minutes left within this segment before our actual break in the middle of this, but more about the educational part of this. So you have a set basic principle of teaching children about strangers, and the protocols to go through, not only for them but for their parents as well. I mean, this is a two-part plan.
Right.
Is there a ABC or 1, 2, 3 step in assessing the generic, this is a stranger safety situation, or is it broken down by the situation? And I know the answer to that because you have blogs about individual situations, and I think that's how you go about this. I mean, explain how you could be walking down the hall of a school versus walking in a store during holiday shopping season versus being in a park, and there really is a different way to go about each of those situations.
Yes. The first primary step is to define with your child what a stranger, or who a stranger is. And we basically say that a stranger is anyone you don't know and you haven't been formally introduced. So if a child can go back in their memory and they can think of those situations, is this person in front of me someone I know through my parents or through my friends that I have been formally introduced to? I know their name, they know my name. Is it that person? If it isn't, then they don't listen to them and they shut down to that person. They run away from that person. We teach them the concept of run, which we break down into what can they be thinking about, which is recognize, the letter R, recognize, U, unsafe, recognize an unsafe situation, and never go with a stranger, so it's R-U-N, run. We talk about using the buddy system, never going anywhere alone. That goes back, that's a key concept if you go back to elementary school. You need to go to the office. You're never sent to the office alone. You always have a buddy with you. So we teach everyone that if they're out playing, if they're in a store, wherever they go, they always have to have a buddy with them, and they should never be alone. So as long as they adhere to those two concepts, that diminishes the chance of someone actually coming up and abducting them. As far as in a store, you could run through different drills with your child, and you go into a store, and the first thing you can point out to them is the cashier. You could say, you know, that person works here, they have a name tag on, they have a uniform. If anything happens, if you and I are separated, you are to go to that person and have them announce over the loudspeaker that, you know, you are lost and that you need your parents to come. So you can make it a game. You can start to teach them different ways to identify certain situations. In our live program, I actually speak with the children and I tell them, think about what your parents had on for breakfast this morning before you came to school. Think about what your teachers are wearing right now. Then I make them close their eyes, and let's say right now I'm wearing a black shirt. I say, you know, everyone close your eyes. What color is my pink shirt? And the kids have their eyes closed and they yell out, you know, it's black. You know, he tried to trick us. So we try to teach them that. We also teach them that a stranger is not always a big, ugly man. It can be a beautiful woman. It could be a friend. It could be anyone, or a friendly person, I should say. It can't be a friend because then they're not a stranger.
Right.
But it could be a friendly person, and most likely it's going to be a very friendly person because they're going to be offering them gifts. And we teach them is that, you know, think about when I was a kid, it was, you know, hey, you want some candy, or would you like something, you know, like ice cream or something. Now it's more sophisticated. Now it's, do you have an iPod? Do you want an iPad? They'll do anything to, you know, lure a child in. Mm-hmm. And I try to appeal to their sense of common sense, where I say, think about the mechanizations. Think about how much work you have to put into getting your parents to buy you an iPad or to buy you an iPod Touch. What makes you think after you going at them for hours of pleading and begging and giving them the great idea that they want to do this, what makes you think that someone you don't know is going to walk up to you and just give you one without even so much as a question? So, you know, we try to appeal to their common sense.
Yeah, there's a lot to think about, a lot of education involved with this foundation, and all of it really can be found on rosebrucia.org, and there's a curriculum tab at the top of the website that you can click and actually download all of everything that Matt said and tons of more lesson plans. And it's we're going to talk about it later in the interview as well, the specifics of how to go about getting the curriculum, but it's as simple as going on rosebrucia.org. And correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I've gone on the site myself and checked it out, but I want to make sure it's as easy as possible for people listening. And then we'll touch that again when we come back after the break. So we are going to take a quick little break, come back, and we'll talk more about the foundation, some of the great things Matt has done, and his experiences at Sachem, because I always love to talk about the in-school experience when our alumni actually attended Sachem. So we'll be back with you right after these words. 91.9 WSHR, this is the Sachem News Hour, and I'm Chris Vaccaro. If you were listening before the break, I am joined by Matt Barbis, founder and chairman of the Rose Brucia Educational Foundation, talking a little stranger safety awareness. Now, I want to get into, I'm going to name drop, I already did it before, Donald Trump, Richard Lafrac, Don Peebles, Forbes, there's more. Oh, Paul Ryan, you dropped that one before. This is really all a result of, and you mentioned her name, Lorianne LaRocco, and her wonderful Rolodex, because she is a senior talent producer at CNBC, an author, a journalist in her own right, and she has all these connections, and just so happened to graduate from Sachem in 1989 as well. We talk about picking the right friends, huh, Matt?
Yeah. It was pretty cool. Lorianne and I actually attended junior high school together, and we had a nice friendship, and then we kind of lost track after college, and then as amazingly as things happen, all of a sudden we're back in each other's lives, and it's like we never missed a beat.
And, I mean, do you get starstruck? I mean, you're there for business, you're there for your foundation, and I think they have a respect factor. You're not just there to meet them to say hi. You have, something that you need to educate them on. And for the most part, every single meeting is a learning experience and a success story, because you always walk away there gaining something, and whether it's something for the foundation or for your personal wealth and knowledge and growth, it seems to be an amazing experience every time I talk to you.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, when I go in there, and I'm going in there for the foundation, I have no qualms about speaking with anyone. Whoever wants to talk about the foundation, I'll sit down and speak with them about it. but there's a certain perk level to all of a sudden, in 1987, I'm sitting in Sachem reading The Art of the Deal and learning all about Donald Trump, and then, 20 years later, I'm asked to meet him in his office as a direct result of Lorianne, saying you're going to meet with Donald Trump, and to walk into his office and, it should be me that's more interested in him. And he turned it around on me, and we spoke for a good half hour, and it was just an amazing experience because he was so engrossed with what we were saying, and he came away saying, hey, this is not a problem, this is something that I want to help you with, and this is just the beginning.
And you wound up filming a small infomercial with, or PSA I guess is the correct term, but with Donald Trump at his office, and he was open arms in terms of helping you, and you said he was just a pro when it came to getting on camera, doing what he needed to do. Talk about the experience and him actually helping on that specific day. It was pretty cool, I bet.
Yes, he offered up Trump Tower to us right away. He said, listen, if I can help you, just keep in mind that I do have a busy schedule, and if there's any way that you can come up with something that would be time efficient for me, I would love to do it. So as soon as he said we could use Trump Tower, I said, well, how about we create a 30 to 45 second public service announcement announcing that our program's available, talk about the statistics of child abduction, and he was all about it. He said, that's not a problem, and one of the things that I took away from it was that he's a very different person in front of you than he projects on television. And I don't know if he wants that to be a secret or not, but he was very engaged in the conversation, and it was very heartfelt, the offer that he made. And not only did he make the offer, but he actually followed through. I mean, we showed up there, and he walked in, and he was excited to see me, and I was excited to see him, and we went over to his executive boardroom, and we were filming, and he was spot on. I mean, he says, whoever wrote this did a great job, and I kind of laughed under my breath because I wrote it, and I didn't want to tell him that, so I stayed quiet about that. But he was able to do the whole thing in 2 takes, and it was pretty wild to watch.
Another person is Steve Forbes, and being growing up sort of a fan of business, as you've said to me many times, that was also a humbling experience for you. Going to Forbes' office and taking in that whole experience, and you were very humble about that. Similar feelings, with him and Mr. Trump?
Yes, Steve Forbes was, always someone that I looked up to, and it was funny, when I first went into the accounting field and finance field, one of the first things that I did was to attend a seminar on the flat tax that was being proposed at the time. And I'm going back into, the late 80s, the early 90s, and here I am, young kid out of high school, and I'm sitting in the middle, I'm like in college at the time, and we're ushered in with 250 other people, and out comes Steve Forbes, and he starts speaking, and we're all writing, taking down every word he had to say, and really taking in the experience and learning, just of what he was proposing at the time. And then, flip it again, and now 20 years later, I get to meet him alone in his office, and before I can start saying anything, he says, tell me about the foundation. And just about when I'm about to speak, he takes out this notepad and he starts taking notes on our foundation. And that was just, an incredible feeling at the time. And he was just a very generous guy too. He said, if there's anything I can do, you let me know. And I said, well, there is something that I need to ask you. You're in communications, and you're in the newspaper and the magazine business. What's the best way to get my message out there? How do we do this? And he spent a good 45 minutes with us that day, telling us what we could do and how we could do it. And he was just a generous person.
Talking with Matt Barbis, the founder and chairman of the Rose Brucia Educational Foundation, here on the Sachem News Hour. I guess probably the biggest thing that you guys have done, in my eyes, was the push to get these made into a bill. The Rose Brucia Educational Foundation Day, Stranger Safety Awareness Day. That seemed to be where all of these meetings and the news and the press for the foundation was coming from. Yes, you're educating. Yes, you have curriculum. Yes, you're trying to spread awareness. But when there was so much press surrounding these days, where it was just a monumental moment for the foundation. It started off, in the county, and then New York State, and then the national level. That's pretty high up there, and that you're dealing with some influential people. One of them being Paul Ryan. Talk about that process of getting a bill, to Capitol Hill, and the whole deal with really making your foundation not just this local, organization, but the national spotlight is pretty important.
Right. Well, we started out by another Sachem alum, Doug Cohen. He's a vice president over at Long Island Ducks.
Right.
And Doug had contacted me and said, hey, you've got this great organization. Why don't we have a Stranger Safety Day at Duck Stadium? And I had mentioned that to Lorianne, and Lorianne said, that's great, that's a great local event. Let's turn it into something real. And she then said, contact the local politicos, whatever you want to call them, and get them involved. And I did. And then she didn't stop there. She said, you need to sit with a congressman, go to your local guy now, and put me on speakerphone. So I did, and she was on speakerphone. And then I got a quick relearning or, brush up on local government, where I found out that in order to propose a bill, you need a bipartisan, offering. So I had Congressman Steve Israel, who's a Democrat, and he looked at me across the table. He says, who do you want to be the Republican counterpart? I said, well, I don't know anybody. So I was thinking, maybe Vern Buchanan from Florida, where Carly was abducted. And he said, that's a great idea. He said, but I don't really know him personally. It works better if we have someone that you know, or that I know. So with that, Lorianne asked to be put on hold, and she came back on 5 minutes later, and she said, I got Paul Ryan. And at the time, I didn't know who Paul Ryan was. I'd heard of him, but I didn't know him at all.
This is way before he had announced that he was going to be the running mate for the VP.
Correct. It was before he was the House Budget Chairman as well.
Mm-hmm.
So she said, I got Paul Ryan from Wisconsin, and I just remember Congressman Israel saying to me, he said, wow, how do you know Paul Ryan? And I said, I don't. And I said, Lorianne does. And he's like, how do you know Lorianne? And I said, well, we grew up together. And so I got the refresher course on having a Republican and a Democrat actually write the bill. And it, she got it going, and we followed it up. And then on a local level again, what we decided to do is our curriculum has 5 educational components to it, or 5 episodes per grade level. So what I had always thought of after getting the day was always to get a week. If we could get a Stranger Safety Awareness week going, then you could play, or you as a teacher, I'm saying, teachers could play 1 lesson per day, 1 video, follow up the corresponding lesson, and they could teach it in succession for 5 days, leading up to the most important Stranger Safety Awareness Day of the year, which is Halloween. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to get that through. So what happened was that, which you were talking about in the news before, Assemblyman Al Graff actually took this to Governor Cuomo, and in May he signed in the Rose Brucia Stranger Safety Awareness Week bill, and it was signed in by the governor, and now it's official. Every 3rd week in October from now and forward will be utilized to play our program leading up to Halloween. Give children that refresher course for them.
Big week.
Yes.
So a lot has happened. It's been an exciting time for you and the foundation, and there's, I'm sure, a lot more to come. Before we end the interview, I did want to get your thoughts on Sachem, and you briefly discussed, what it meant for you. You mentioned guys like Ed Paquette, who I also had as a teacher for business, and we could talk an hour about. We could do a show on Ed Paquette.
Ed Paquette show.
He would probably just take over and tell jokes the whole time. For those out there listening and know him, you would understand. But yeah, what did Sachem mean for you and your development and the opportunities it provided? One of them being you were on the air here at WSHR in '89.
Yes, it's great to come full circle. I mean, I feel very, very lucky having grown up in Sachem, and the education that I received along the way has been invaluable to me, and the people that I've met and people that have stayed in my life as a result of that. And I feel blessed that way. And every day something new, and something that I learned is always utilized. And I just feel like I had a special childhood because of Sachem, and my entire educational committee. It's comprised mostly of retired Sachem teachers that were a very big part of making me who I am today.
Fantastic. I love it. I appreciate you coming on here and also being a fine representative of Sachem, and still being a community resident and representing us proudly. So thanks for coming on the show. That's Matt Barbis from the Rose Brucia Educational Foundation, and I cannot stress it enough. Go on rosebrucia.org for the free curriculum. Click the curriculum tab at the top, and every single thing you'd ever want to learn about stranger safety awareness is there. It's a great educational program, and Matt and his staff put up blog entries, pretty frequently, almost weekly, sometimes daily in hot stretches of the year, so you can constantly get updates on what's going on with the foundation. So thanks, Matt, for coming in.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we still have some history elements to talk about, some alumni things, and sports news. So we'll be back right after this.